In this video, I'm going to go over why now is the right time to finally start that Booktube or Bookstagram or BookTok account. And I'm also going to tell you how to get started. And I know what you might be thinking. You don't have to put everything that you do on the internet, Tony. Not everyone has to be an influencer. And normally I would agree with you, but I think books are a really big exception. And in this video, I'm going to dig into why. Let's get to the first reason why you should start that Booktube account, and let's tackle the elephant in the room, which is that in our society, reading seems to be on the decline, and with it, critical thinking. If we want to live in a culture and community of intellectualism, we have to promote intellectual endeavors, and I think that all starts with reading. There's a really big lie or myth in the book creator space, which is that you have to review and talk about popular books to have any success in terms of engagement, growing a community. But the truth is, that's not how it works. In fact, this is a belief that I used to have, which was completely destroyed when I did a review of Hard Rain Falling by Don Carpenter. I talk about this all the time. That book, prior to me doing a review of it, had sold 2,000 copies of the NYRB reissue edition. So needless to say, it wasn't a very popular book. Yet despite that, that video review has now done over 3 million views across platforms on the internet. So what does that tell us? Well, that tells us that it's not our job as creators to just talk about things that are already popular. We can literally make things more popular. I mean, that is why people are called influencers, because when you put content on the internet, you have the ability to influence others. In fact, most of the books I read and review are pretty niche. Yet despite that, I've been able to build a following of over 100,000 people on Instagram, over 100,000 people on TikTok, and our YouTube is a little bit behind, but we've crossed over the 16,000 subscriber mark here on YouTube. The point I'm trying to make is, if we want reading to be cool again, we can actually have a direct impact on that by putting book-related content on the internet. One of the most amazing things about the internet is it's given niche communities that were typically spread out across the entire country or globe a way to feel more connected and seem bigger and larger than they really are, because we can all come together in one shared space online. If you're the type of person who laments the fact that there's no good book content on the internet, or people don't read anymore, well, do something about it. Make it cool by posting about books on the internet. People can't engage with stuff that's not there. And if you're thinking, well, I don't know how to do social media, my posts aren't going to be any good, don't worry about that, because there is a time and a place for all levels of creatorship, from somebody that's just doing it as a hobby for fun to people who, like me, who might be taking it a little bit more seriously. The second reason why I think you should start that book social account is because of something that happened to me the other day. I was at dinner with some friends and family, and someone was talking about some books they've been reading, and they're part of some book club. And they said to me, oh, you know how it is. Like, you read so many books and you can barely even remember what the last book you read was about, or even what the title of it was. And I thought, I literally never have that problem. And I think a big part of that is because when you take the time to make a social media post about a book, whether it's a written review, maybe you're going to just do a review on somewhere like Goodreads or Storygraph, or you're going to shoot a video about it, you have to think about what you read on a much deeper level. You have to be able to concisely explain to people what the book is about, how it made you feel, what the major themes were, who it might be for, who might not like it. And when you think about all these details and take some time to engage with it after you finish the book, you're going to remember much more of what you read. And not that remembering everything is really the reason to read, but it certainly helps you get more out of the books, and I just think enhances the reading experience. I found that it also helps to slow me down from that kind of incessant need to, okay, I finished a book, let me pick another one up right away, chasing those numbers of how many books I've read in a single year. It forces me to take some time and reflect on what I read. And if it can help build a reading community and help you get more out of the books you're reading at the same time, that seems like a pretty obvious win for me. The third reason why I think you should start that book account is because we live in a consumer culture. And I don't just mean that in the traditional sense of buying products, but the way we consume information now. We are constantly bombarded with information that we're consuming all day long, whether it's social media, podcasts, listening to music, watching movies, seeing news headlines. You get it. You live it every day, just like I do. I think one of the defining factors of being a human being is our ability to create. I think creating is part of the human experience, and creating social media content helps you experience that. And you might not think of doing a book review as a creative pursuit, but it is. You are making something. Just because the thing that you're making is explicitly inspired by something else doesn't make it less of a creative pursuit. When I'm making these videos, I can choose to shoot some creative B-roll or use creative lighting. If I'm taking photos of the books, I can get really creative with that as well. But just flexing your thinking muscle and putting something out rather than taking something in is really important, and I think can have a huge benefit on your mental health and just really is part of being human. Not to get too off track here, but I think this is part of the AI conversation that a lot of people don't have. When we think about AI art and the ethics of consuming something that was made by a robot, I mean, yeah, obviously that has its issues, but there's something to be said about making something, even if the thing you're making doesn't come out good. I'm really not that great of a singer, but I love to sing and play guitar because it's enjoyable for me to do the act of singing. There's also something very rewarding about the experience of learning a new skill, practicing a new skill, and improving at that skill. Even if that skill doesn't bring you a monetary return, not everything has to be tied to making money. You can do something just for the sake of doing it and enjoying your time doing it. If the whole point of life is just the end result and we can offload all those end results to computers and robots, then kind of what's the point? So for me, I started this whole social media journey because I was like, hey, I'm going to be reading these books anyway. I might as well make something about the books I'm reading and kind of kill two birds with one stone. And the fourth and final reason why you should start that book social account is because I just think it's a great way to connect with other people. I've made some incredible friends through social media with the book community. There's people that I've become friends with on each platform. There's people who are part of my book club online, which I'm very close with. But generally speaking, I've met some very interesting people, had some great conversations with them, sometimes virtually, sometimes via Zoom, and I've even met people in real life. And I think right now more than ever, like being connected to a community is probably the most important thing you can do for your sense of well-being. I think that's something that pretty much people across the board are really missing out on in our modern way of living. Now, before I go into how to get started on social media, I just want to add that I could have made the list of whys much longer. There's been so many incredible benefits that I've experienced from doing this social media project. Yes, I make a little bit of money from it. That's great. I get free books all the time. That's fantastic. I've got access to people that I normally wouldn't have, like authors and publishers for interviews. That's been great. This year, I'm even doing my first paid speaking engagement, which is kind of something that was on my mind as a goal, but never really pursued it, but it just kind of fell into my lap because of my social media presence. All in all, it's definitely been worth it. Okay, now let's pivot into how to get started on social media. And the first thing you need to do is really to define what your goals are, because we all might want different things out of doing social media. And for me, the way I looked at it was, if I could make some money by doing this, that would be great. But if I never make $1, the worst thing that's happened is I read some great books and I had a lot of fun making videos and posts about them. For me, that was enough. But you should really think clearly about what you want to get out of it. Maybe you just want to start posting just to help build that reading community online and promote the great activity of reading. Maybe you just want to connect with other people. Maybe you want to grow a following big enough that you can get some free books out of it, which doesn't take as much as you think it does. Whatever your goals are, just be clear about that so you don't get hung up on vanity metrics like views or followers. The next thing I want to tell you is the story of kind of how I got started started as a social media book reviewer. And to be honest, I had started a few other social media projects, a couple YouTube channels about a variety of things, maybe 3 or 4 different projects, and I gave up on all of them. And one day I asked myself this question. I looked back at the last 5 years and I said, if I had stuck with any one of those projects, where would I be today? And I realized I would probably be pretty far along and be getting some really tangible benefits out of having stuck with those projects. But the problem was I was impatient. I would try a few things. Okay, I'm not getting any views. I'm not getting any likes. Let me just give up. So when I started with the book project, I basically said to myself, you are going to do this for 12 months, every week for a year. And whatever happens, happens. That is literally what I did. I told myself I would just keep working on this project until I figured out how to make it work. Now, my goal for the first year on Instagram was to have 10,000 followers, and I failed that goal. I think I had about 9,200 at the end of my first year. And don't get me wrong, there was that voice in the back of my head saying, you're wasting your time, just give up. But I told myself, I've given up before. I've seen some progress here. It's maybe not the progress I wanted, but I have made some progress. So let's see if I can continue on. Let me see if I can amplify these results. At the end of the year, I had 9,200 followers. By April of the following year, so just a few months later, I had 20,000. And now a year on from that, I have over 100,000. So it's snowballed. And I think back to when I made my first few posts and they got 3 views or 80 views. And I thought, this is a waste of time. And I think about the end of that first year and how much of my life I would have missed out on if I quit then. So I think the second real big point I'm trying to make to you here is that it's probably going to take you longer than you think to reach your goals, regardless of what those goals are. And again, you just have to be happy with the act of the doing, because that is really the most enjoyable part. What you start to realize when you hit 10,000, 50,000, 100,000 followers is nothing really happens. You get to those numbers and then you start thinking about the next number goal. But I'm still enjoying reading the books. I'm still enjoying making the videos. That is really the fun part of the process. Connecting with other people is the fun part of the process. And you can enjoy that whether you have 100 followers or 100,000 followers. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with is a pitch. I'm going to be very upfront about this. I'm going to pitch you on something that I'm selling. Over on my Patreon, I've put together a series of training videos that explains in detail how I've grown this audience. It's specifically tailored for book reviewers, authors, small publishers, that kind of thing. But really, the techniques that you find there can be used for any type of social media, but it is tailored to books. On top of the core training modules, I'm adding to it every single month. And there's a small but growing community of other people where you can bounce ideas off of and have chats about making social media content. And the really nice thing about this is this tier on my Patreon also gets you everything that my book club comes with. So not only do you get to learn about building your own social media following, but you get to join an awesome book club if you want to. There's 2 options for it. One is a very low cost monthly membership. There's no commitment to it. You can cancel anytime. And the second option is paying a one-time fee to just buy everything at once. I don't really like to do sales. This program's actually been up for over a month now, but I've barely talked about it anywhere. But if you want to start fighting back against this anti-intellectual, anti-book culture that we seem to be living in, you can be part of the resistance by making some really great, effective social media content about books. The pitch is over. Imposter syndrome. Worrying about BookTube being oversaturated. Let's saturate the hell out of social media with books.